If you've been told to pull up your socks, then make sure it's a pair of TNT socks. The TNT shop is now open at tntradio.live. This is Digging Deeper with DD Denslow on today's News Talk, TNT Radio.
Welcome back to TNT Radio. You're here with me, DD Denslow, on my final hour this week of Digging Deeper. I see that there's lots of comments coming in, lots of positive comments coming in with regards to my conversation with Ash Mahmood. A big shout out to everybody in the live chat, to Elaine, to little Carol, Mazzy, Wild Heather is in there, Holly, Madrid. I'm not sure I've ever seen Madrid in the live chat, and if I haven't, welcome to the show. And to everybody else who's in the live chat, please keep your comments coming in. And in particular, if you have any comments or questions for my next guest, Alex Mitchell, he is returning to TNT. He's been on a few times, I believe. This is the second time he's been on talking to me. Alex suffered life-changing injuries from the COVID-19 vaccine, but he has got bat up on his foot, and he is even doing mini marathons on a treadmill, he just told me. And I'm like, oh God, should I talk about the 30 miles that I walked the other Monday? Oh, it makes me feel a bit bad. But if you are interested in coming on some walks with me, some camping, in the Southwest is where I'm focusing at the moment, but wider across the country, then please give me a shout. You can go and check out my video of my latest little excursion on my Twitter account at Wolsned, WOLSNED. I'm not going to do much more of an introduction. I'm just going to go straight to you, Alex. Alex, really welcome to the show. It's great to have you back on. You actually look really well, even though you've told me you are exhausted. How are you, my friend?
Exhausted, but yeah, I'm doing not too bad. Thank you so much for that. Last few weeks it's been a hard grind behind the scenes because I've got some targets physically that I've got to achieve. Tomorrow I'm going to get a new socket fitted. I've had some valve issues which causes the seal on the prosthetic leg to break, which is a bit of a problem because you're halfway across the road and your prosthetic leg's coming off. It's not a good place to be.
No.
Which has happened. So I go and get that tomorrow. And basically all I've been doing the last 3 or 4 weeks is a heavy physical, trying to get my body into some kind of shape. As I say, yeah, I managed to do 1.5 kilometers on a treadmill yesterday. Granted, it was at less than 5 miles per hour. I don't even know what the speed was, but hey, it wasn't 30, but I'm sure I could get there someday. We just keep going.
I'll tell you what, mate. We should arrange a camping trip if you want. We won't do much in the way of hiking, but I'm planning to do the whole country if I can, or at least the rural areas. So maybe I'll make my way up to sunny Scotland to pay you a visit.
I do have a couple of very good camping spots, wild camping I've used for 20 odd 30 years. So yeah, that could be something that could be up in the cards.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Alex, I'm one of these people who, when I say something, I do it. Yeah, I'm a man of my word, and I don't say things that I don't mean. So it looks like it's something that we're going to have to plan now that I have said it. And hey, I'm up for that. I love Scotland. It's a beautiful part of the country. Alex, you're well known. You're well known for being vocal and speaking out for the vaccine injured, yourself having suffered, and some of you've got your friends with John Watt, your friends with Adam Rowland. I had another lass on whose name now I can't remember. That's not good. But you've got some support groups. How are they? How is your activism growing? How is your support group going? Tell us about it, please.
It's been a long journey, but the last year has been a massive increase in so many areas. Where are the organisations now? Both the Scottish Vaccine Injury Group are core participants in the Scottish COVID inquiry and the UK COVID inquiry. And at the moment, there's a lot of work going on in the background to prepare for the Scottish one. Obviously, we know that the UK one has been delayed until January 25.
Yeah.
It's a strange one that. Again, we'll go on, maybe cover those politics. It just all stinks to high heaven to me. I have serious issues with what's going on recently in the media. with regarding the actual COVID inquiry itself, is meant to be transparent and fair and clear, and it's pushing a trigger warning for a drama, fictitious drama about something that doesn't even mention people like me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I've got serious problems about, well, where's your transparency there? How do you think this makes people like me feel? The groups themselves, it's crazy that less than a year and a half ago, it's not even, it's less than 13, 14 months, we started off with 3 people trying to get desperately with a deadline to set up a Scottish group for the COVID inquiry. And it's got now over 500 plus members in a year.
Mm-hmm.
UKCV families growing exponentially. It must be close to over 2,000 members. The numbers just keep growing and growing, and yet we've still got politicians coming out with lies now because they're not truths, and because they're in Parliament, they're allowed to say it and not allowed to back it up. Have we came so far? Yes, but we're only scratching the surface of where we need to be. I'm 3 years. This all kicks off the 20th of March for me. Many people are now hitting the 3-year mark. And it's been a challenge in every possible way just to get here. And now everybody's starting to realise and recognise there's just too many of us. So this celebrate rare, be proud to be rare, coming from the company that put us in the position we're in. It's had over 190,000 views, 870 comments, which are all hidden, most of them negative.
Mm-hmm. Did AstraZeneca hide all the comments on that tweet where they said
they're all
that,
hidden.
let's celebrate rare illnesses like, I don't know, myocarditis, which 1% of vaccine injured suffered from.
It's horrific.
It's a real stab in the heart, isn't it, by that particular company? Excuse the pun there. I have a friend who had AstraZeneca. She had 2 heart attacks. That's what it took for her to wake up to the fact that I was telling her the truth all along. Is that what you're seeing in experience? That it is taking people to get injured before they sort of wake up and come and join part of your vaccine injured groups?
A lot of people are walking about thinking they're alone because the doctors are telling them, you're the first person I've seen with this. So they don't realise it, they don't look for it, and it's through usually a friend of a friend or a connection that says, have you seen this? And they then start to go, hold on a minute. That's when they put the connection. Now, we're not saying every single person's ill health is related to these things. What we're saying is that the numbers just don't add up and there's a serious problem.
Mm-hmm.
As I say, I'll be 3 years on the 20th of March from when I took this bloody thing. And I've never changed what I set out to try and get, which is raise awareness and get help and support for the bereaved and the injured. Stop these things and keep them away from children. And nothing, and I said at the very beginning, like yourself, I don't say things if I don't actually mean them. I said, you add to these or take away from them, I'll walk away. And I'll keep going my path, which is to get those 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
I have no intentions of ever changing that path until I achieve those 3 things. So anything else that goes on to me is just a deflection or a distraction. And that's where I've been the last 3 weeks in many ways. Legally, I've been very busy as well, because obviously I'm now part of the class action.
Yep.
And all those paperwork had to be completed by the beginning of sort of last week, effectively. And we've had to cram in about 2 years legal work in literally 5 weeks. So that's why I've been quite quiet as well.
Harder than your marathon then.
Oh yeah, mentally, and the brain fog doesn't help because the cognitive issues that I've got is that my communication and reading emails and letters, it used to be that I could speed read them and pick out what I needed. Now I've got to read them about 6 times and I've got to go back to the beginning and try. It's just a cognitive. Once it's in my head, it's fine. But that's part of the problems that we face. I'm not alone in that horrible thought, to be honest with you.
You've mentioned the COVID inquiry. You've mentioned the UK COVID inquiry that's been delayed until after the election. They've said
Yeah.
January 25 is probably why they picked that particular date. You mentioned the COVID inquiry and that the vaccine injured groups that you are part of or that you run are having some input into the Scottish COVID inquiry. What is the input? What are the questions that are being asked? How seriously is it taken? And what's the difference between the Scottish COVID inquiry and what we've seen so far of the UK COVID inquiry?
Well, both inquiries cannot touch on the same subject, if that makes any sense.
I
So
didn't know that.
I'm not there discussing how my vaccine injury has affected me personally and things like that. It's more about the support or the complete lack of support. What stage we're at just now, we're now starting to draw our what they call the witness statements together. Is effectively taking the individual, their experience of what kind of help and support they've received, what avenues they've pursued themselves, and what results that produced. And some of these stories are absolutely horrific,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely horrific.
Mm-hmm.
Moan
I
included
mean,
in
when
many
I
ways.
listened to Adam Rowland's story and what had happened to him, and I brought him on before I brought on the show, which was at the beginning of last year, 2023, I literally cried. I mean, I listening to what had happened to Adam Rowland, and it's the same for everyone. I'm not saying his story's any worse or better than someone else, but it was a real tearjerker to the harm that's been caused by these vaccines.
Yeah. I think that's where many of us are. People maybe look at me and think where I am is horrific. And I look at other people and think where they are is horrific. And that's how bad it is. I can only imagine what Adam's been through and going through. And the fact that he's still here and still going in
Mm-hmm.
many ways says so much about the
Mm-hmm.
individual. And the same with the character you mentioned earlier, John Watt, who managed to put the Prime Minister on a spot. Again, has been through horrific health issues, never mind the trauma of how they've been treated and dealt with. Um, do you know what? I found that I've lost a lot of things in this life, but I found two brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And I found two people that I get called the most strong, stubborn, awkward that my mother had ever clapped eyes on. And I found that I've met two others, and I'm not alone because they're equally as strong and as determined and as strong as I am. And what Adam's been through on his health and where he still is, it's a horrible place because, at least with me to a certain extent, they've narrowed it down a bit to a certain thing. Although it's causing other issues, we can't actually get to the bottom of what this is actually doing to Adam in many ways. And, Adam's a very intelligent, qualified guy in what his field is. He knows exactly what's going on in his body like yourself, at a chemical level, because
Mm-hmm.
that's where his qualifications are. And that's a difficult thing to try and keep your brain straight when you know exactly what this is doing to you, but you don't know what it's doing to you. Strong guy.
Yeah, yeah, and I wasn't, I'm not trying to say, oh, he's worse than this, but this person's worse.
Oh no, no,
I mean,
no, oh no.
right across the board,
Yeah,
the impact of these COVID vaccines on a lot of people has been absolutely horrific. You said that there's some class action that you spent weeks filling out legal paperwork. What can you tell us about that class action? Number of people involved, what the aim is of this class action in terms of what the target is, what the legal case is. Can you just tell us a bit about that, please, Alex?
well, it's a class action that's been taken out against AstraZeneca on product liability, I believe. That's through a company called Lee Day, which is Sarah Moore, who's the head of that. There's 63 claims. The papers have all been served. And my understanding is we now await what AstraZeneca's response is. What do we hope to get out of it? Proper justice and help and support. That's ultimately what this is about. The government are refusing to help us. They're throwing us under the bus.
Mm-hmm.
We're now throwing doctors and scientists under the bus. They'll throw everybody under the bus
Yeah,
apart from themselves.
yeah.
Um, so we've got no other option but to take on a horrifically expensive legal case. This is the thing about the Prime Minister, with the statements he makes. He stated that there was a compensation scheme. 3 times he stated it. Could someone point me to that compensation scheme? Because there is no such thing in the UK. That shows his knowledge and his interest and his care. He didn't want to discuss the vaccine damage payment scheme at an individual level. Well, let's sit around the table and discuss it at an overall level, because I'm highly qualified and experienced in that process to show you where the pitfalls are. Mm-hmm. I would love to walk them through how horrific that's been.
Have you received any payments from? I know it's not officially, it's not a compensation, it's a payment scheme. It's one-off
award scheme. It's a one-off award scheme. And unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever way you look at it, I'm the first living person that was ever awarded it for these vaccines, especially against the AstraZeneca for it. The first person to be awarded was a lady called Vicky Spitfire, her partner, Lord Zion.
Yeah, okay.
There's been many of us being awarded this one-off tax-free payment that affects your benefits if you're on certain benefits. It's insane, and they tell you that's to support you for the rest of your life. And I'm not being I've never been about money. I need money to live, but it doesn't even cover 4 years' salary for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's crumbs. It's crumbs, like you said. At the end of the day, it's crumbs. Almost in, you've been injured. I have some crumbs.
And more importantly than anything else, that never gets mentioned, is that 98% of all the claims fail. It's only a 2% award success. So there's not an avenue to go. Mm-hmm. And the Prime Minister and Parliament, again, the same Prime Minister, stated that, to go litigate. He failed to tell that it was a civil action. There's no legal aid. You have to pay for your own legal fees, between 5 and 75 million.
Yeah, it's
not about money, as you can clearly see.
It's a very, very sad indictment of the state of the world, and I think after this insanity or absurdity, as Ash Mahmood called it, of the COVID period, these types of behaviours by our politicians and our bureaucrats are to be expected. When we're going to a break now, Alex, when we come back, I want to talk about the GB News question time with Sunak and John Watt. I want to know how he got on there. I want to know what the behaviour of GB News was like. I want to know what if there's been any sort of pushback or anything coming back from the government that's supporting the vaccine injured. Has they made any decisions, or have they changed any of their processes? Have they been helpful? We're going to find out right after the break here on TNT Radio.
TNT's Abby Roberts.
People in their early 20s are more likely to be out of work because of ill health than those in their early 40s or even early 50s. Hello. According to a report laying, I wonder what could have caused that. Could it be the 4 years of tyrannical authoritarian, people under the boot and all the jibby jab, jabby jab, jibby jib jib? That's going to make you feel ill. Do you know what I mean? And like the long COVID, which is basically laziness. Oh, I've got the amount of people that said, honestly, that used COVID as an excuse. Like, do you want to come out this weekend? Oh no, I think I'm coming down with COVID. I mean, good grief. Just get a bloody clue, everyone.
Abby Roberts on TNT. We don't rock, we talk. Today's News Talk, TNT Radio.
Welcome back to TNT Radio. You're here with me, DD Denslow. I'm talking to Alex Mitchell. Alex, that GB News incident when John Watt came out and confronted quite aggressively and passionately, and who can blame him, Rishi Sunak, Prime Minister of the UK, telling him to look into my eyes, look into my eyes. My first question, how did John, because everyone's asking it, people go, it's a psyop. He should never have been on GB News. This was set up. It was planned. And that was bound to happen in the conspiratorial nature of social media these days, and you can't blame people. But I would like to know personally, how did John get on? Why did GB News let John on. Was it a deliberate attack on Sunak?
Well, what happened was they put an online application to apply to be in the audience. John applied under his name, and they responded. And then he phoned me straight away and said, they've responded. So they've gone over the couple of days. We're all thinking, some point someone's going to go, we know who you are, off you go. And it went on. And then it turned out that it was actually a third-party company that was setting up the venue and the process. So it wasn't GB News. GB News weren't aware of who the audience members were. All they knew was the questions, on the day. So I think what happened was it was just a lucky coincidences of nobody looked at, I think if GB News were aware of the name John Watt, I don't think it would have happened. And all the way along, it was to go through the process where the question that he was intending to ask was about politics in Scotland, that we feel politically homeless, why should we vote for him? And it was a valid question. And so was the question John did ask. Eventually, and that was a very more valid question. And we didn't tell anyone until John, because we didn't know until John actually got to speak, because we were sitting here, I was sitting here where I am just now, on the phone, on WhatsApp, trying to make sure I was in contact with John and Adam, and obviously they went quiet, so we were thinking, they're in the audience, and I couldn't see them in the audience, and eventually I spotted them. And, for those that were saying that he was on something, yeah, pure adrenaline.
Oh, I bet.
We're just ordinary people who have been badly harmed with heart issues in John's case, who is standing in front of the UK Prime Minister with all his security, fully aware of what's going on and knowing that he's going to ask him a certain question. Yeah, I'd be dancing from one foot to the other, and unfortunately in my case I'd fall over, but I'd be trying to I'd be avoiding things as well, I'm not going to lie. He said it with passion. Where are we? How did GB News react?
Yeah.
I think, obviously, he didn't get any backlash from anyone in GB News, to my understanding. John would obviously clarify that for sure himself, because obviously he was on the show later on the next day with Paddy Christie, giving his version of it. I think GB News, in many ways, are so thankful that it did happen, although they didn't plan for it and they had no control over it. I do think the presenter showed himself up for bringing exactly what we're up against. As John said, he was being silenced. He silenced them.
Yeah, he was shut down, wasn't he? He was allowed to go so far, and then the guy who was moderating this question time did get him to sit down and shut up so that Sunak could answer. Sunak came out and said, the vaccines are safe, and I'm appalled to hear that people have been silenced. You personally, what do you think about Sunak's response to John Watt saying, look into my eyes, where's the support for the thousands of people, tens of thousands of people who have been harmed by the vaccine? What do you think of Sunak?
As a politician, I can't say as a person because I don't know him, and I don't want to know him, to be perfectly honest with you. As a politician, he's just shown himself now to have lied so many times that he clearly is only interested in his bucks and nobody else's bucks, as all of them are. The whole, out of the 650 MPs that's in the UK Parliament, 129, I think it is, in the Scottish one, I'm going to say there's a handful I would say they're capable of listening. The rest are not worth your time and my time. They're only in it for themselves. I think he needs to be more transparent on his investments and his background before he starts commenting on anybody else's and throwing people under buses. This is the man that was in charge of the government and a senior member of it, along with the rest of them, who are all walking away. And then he knows and they know that they're out at this election. So they're all trying to walk away. You don't get to walk away from this one. Because if I don't get to walk away from it, I'm sure as hell damn going to spend the rest of my life chasing to make sure you don't walk away from it. And I'm not alone. There's too many of us now. It's
Do you
just
think
became so apparent.
Do you think that the political class, people like Rishi Sunak, who must have knowingly been lying when he said it's safe, he dropped the effective part, and to say, oh, I didn't know you'd been silenced, simply because he does have £500 million or $1 million, whatever, a lot of money invested in Moderna. Moderna have only ever produced one product. And so he would have known of the surveillance that Moderna would have been doing as this massive prime investor with a large amount of money invested. He would have known what Moderna would know with regards to vaccine injuries, prevailing narratives, what's being said by the public, what's going on social media. So he knowingly lied. Do you think when you look back, you go, oh, the COVID inquiry in the UK has been postponed to after January, that their intention is, and this is probably the vast majority of the political class sitting in Parliament in the UK, that their intention is to hold tight and do a runner?
Yeah, cyclic. They've done it since thalidomide, and we can go through every single scandal, and there's lots of them, and there's so many coming out just now. You know, we could go through the wire mesh, the widows, the pension, the females retiring at 60. We can go through the pab loss. We can go through the blood infections. We can go through the vaccines. We just keep going.
Yeah.
These people are doing this for 60 years, and they think having a public inquiry that has no legislative powers, no legal powers, so therefore all it's got is a don't do this way again powers. No, that's not where we are now. We need to switch that from that to a proper full judicial with full legal redress. And what do I believe is full legal redress for these companies and these people that have earned their money on the back of people like me? It means the full weight of everything. Take their personal wealth, take their company wealth, take their assets, go and fix the people or try and help the people that you have destroyed. These are doing it again and again and again. And this time they think they're going to get away with it. They cannot. You cannot stand in British TV and say it's unequivocally safe
when there's a payment scheme for those that have been injured, which is what he said to John Watt. Like you said, he didn't even know that it's not a compensation scheme. It's just a payment award scheme if you're one of the lucky 2%. With regards to all these other issues, I could mention the post office scandal, all the wars that we're involved in that we don't need to be involved in, the economic crisis as a result of COVID. We've got all these different issues and they all seem to be converging together and snowballing. Do you think that there could actually, this burgeoning snowball of issues, this polycrisis that the governments are facing, not necessarily the public, do you think that this massive amount of pressure could really spell the end for the political system or the political class as we know it in this country? Big question.
I hope so. I genuinely hope so, because we can clearly show for the last 100 years the political system has not worked for the working class or the middle class. It's only worked for the upper class and the echelons. That's a system that's wrong. You know, we're the first to decry any other system that's wrong, and yet we won't look inside. Ash said something earlier. Do you know what the problem with most of the world just now is? People don't know who they are. They don't know what they are. I know exactly who I am. Did you
listen to my conversation with Ash Mahmood? Did you before? Because we was talking exactly about that people are lost, people are directionless, they're sort of trapped in their cells, if you want to call homes that, you know, and we've got screens as our only window to the outside world, and people don't know who they are. Do you think people are starting to find out though now? You've just said you know who you are. I'm doing marches off onto the moors and camping, and I plan to do that maybe with you, Alex, in the near future, in order to try and find myself and escape the insanity. I think more and more people are waking up as that's the direction that they need to take. And if we walk away, we're going to take away the power from the political class. Do you want to expand on that? Because I think he was just, he's going to start talking about it. So
the system that we need is one that is fair, right? So therefore, but look at the current system. A lot of the processes and the policies are not wrong. They're just wrongly administered, or wrongly looked at, or waved the wrong way. That ain't going to take too much to fix, let's be honest. It's the upper rules in the historic echelon of, because someone's father did something 3,000 years ago or 300 years ago, they get to have a stately home and all these riches for what? I don't know what you want to call it, but it's wrong. And the simple fact of the matter is, people say there's trillions in debt. No, sir, that's not what happened. Trillions of money moved. It went from the sort of a poorer end of the factory to the topper end of the factory. That's all that happened.
Uh-huh.
We lost everything and they gained so much more. And there's no way in this society that should be accepted during a so-called pandemic. That people earn that kind of money. I'm sure years ago people were hung, drawn, and quartered for doing things like that. Earning money off the profit of misery, like wars and pandemics. I'm sure people did go to that other place, wherever that may be. Most of them down the way, I would like to think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where we are now. People have lost themselves. They need to find out exactly who they are. You don't have to love everything about yourself. There's lots of things about me I hate, but I can't change them because that's just who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the problem that I find that these people don't get. They don't know what to do with people that know exactly who they are and what they are, because they haven't a clue who they are. Because they've never thought for themselves. All they've ever thought is what's in their pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And I said something. It's a battle of the minds, or a war of the minds, and a battle for the souls. And I do believe that's in many ways where we are. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation with you if I didn't believe that we were going to win it.
Yeah, I mean that I'm very, very positive. We could talk about, I know it wasn't planned, but we can talk about what happened in Rochdale with that election. It doesn't matter what you think about George Galloway; that's sort of almost irrelevant. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I am seeing on social media, on Twitter, because I'm a Twitter person, like an upheaval, like a wave that seems to be moving through social media in terms of what people are saying and what their attitudes are towards the political class. I have never known politicians from all parties, from all sides of the political spectrum, if you want to play the left and right game, get it so hard from the public as they are now. It almost feels like it is on the verge of spilling out onto the street. Is that where we are? That we could potentially be seeing some sort of revolution en masse in a simultaneous way, pushing, like a big wave, pushing against the political system that we have in the UK and across the West?
Don't think it's too dark of an analogy to make. That, yeah, people are close to breaking point because they're seeing so many different scandals coming out, and it's ordinary people doing ordinary lives, getting their lives destroyed, and these rich companies and rich people get to move on and leave them behind.
Mm-hmm.
And people are starting to go, hold on a minute, you're saying it's rare, so what are you doing to help them? If you're now acknowledging that they're rare, what are you actually doing to help and support them? Here you are 3 years down the road, still not a thing, not one ounce of help and support.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we're still getting the pushback from politicians and councillors and MPs.
Did as a result of John's confrontation with Rishi Sunak on GB News, did the politicians, the political class, your MP, government, the establishment, did they contact you or John or any of the other vaccine injured people with support as a result of the GB News incident? Or did they just disappear? Did Rishi just disappear in his limousine with his security detail and that's it? Safe, effective, see ya.
Well, I think within about 4 or 5 days, GB News reached out to John and said that Mr. Sunak's office was looking for his details. We haven't had any response or contact from that yet. So wait and see with that. Myself, have I been contacted by anyone? No, not a single soul.
Other than GB News just following up with John, and they were probably just happy for the clicks and the tweet and the Twitter engagement and the number of views they got on YouTube, which is probably this is great.
Let's not be honest. It's global, and it's in. I see so many different languages because people, and I get that. I do get a smile out of seeing it in different languages, in different news stations, and going, maybe you're right. There is a wave now. There's a wave that we need to keep pushing, and we need to keep that wave going. How do we do that? I don't know. Other than just asking the public to keep unblasting your politicians, keep unblasting them, because when they start to get under pressure, they'll start to do something about it.
That's exactly what I've been saying for the last couple of years. There was no town halls explaining any of this. There's no town halls now saying, "Oh, it looks like there's been some vaccine ninjas. I'm going to get the local Plymouth Luke Pollard to come out and try and appease and calm everyone down and have a question and answer session." They don't want to do that. The reason they don't want to do that is because they're going to feel that peer pressure. They're going to feel that anger and that hatred from the public, and they don't want that. Because that makes them feel bad and that makes them feel horrible about themselves. Is that time coming where the politicians are going to have to face up to angry mobs?
Well, I think it's more than politicians that are going to have to face up to it. I think a lot of mainstream media, journalists,
all of them,
industries are going to have to rethink their future, because people are not going to keep taking scandal after scandal. Now, you're right. The post office one is the one at the moment. What's behind that in the care homes? If that in itself doesn't cause people to take to the streets, then I genuinely think people like myself have wasted my last 3 years.
You've not wasted them. We have to keep going. We have to keep going. We have to keep pushing. And
that's where the dazzle stuff. Ways. Yeah, all that. If that doesn't bring people to the streets, then people like me, what's happened to me ain't going to make one blind bit of difference. That's when, but I can't believe in that, and I don't see that, and that's not what I see out there. Unfortunately, because we're in dark places a lot of the times, we tend to see all the negative side of it. But the reality is, at the moment, it's 95% positive, as opposed to the other way. And I suppose that's taken us a bit of getting used to. I'm not going to lie.
It's the establishment only want us to see that 5% that says, "Oh, you're losing. We're in control. We've got you trodden down. We've got you in fear. You think that you can't win." They only want us to see that bit. But the other 95%, as you just said, that is now really starting to impress and dominate the narrative. And people are going, "Oh, they're losing the narrative." Now, I think the narrative has completely collapsed with regards to COVID and the vaccine and the economy and the wars. And they're papering over it, and they're doing their best to paint over it, to paint all those cracks. But the reality is it's collapsed, and they can't do that forever. And George Galloway is symptomatic of exactly that, I believe. And that's where I'm going to come to Rochdale, UK politics still, when we come back after this break here on TNT Radio.
De-weaponizing weather with reality and perspective.
A prominent climate skeptic and really a brilliant meteorologist, Dr. Ryan Mallard, tweeted today that the idea that 2024 is going to be the warmest on record should be dismissed. Now, first of all, I never say things like that, because when you look at the future, it's an infinite system. A bunch of things are possible. But you've heard me reference on TNT the rapid drop of temperature that's being forecast in the Indo-Pacific. That's the first thing. Second thing is, if you go to CFACT, I show all this. And so it seems like Ryan is echoing the sentiments that I wrote about, all right? That's not to say Ryan didn't come to this independent conclusion. But the fact of the matter is that if it's not this particular year, because the front of the year is going to be very warm, if you take from this middle of summer, coming up in the northern hemisphere, will be winter in the southern hemisphere, into the following year, there could be a dramatic drop in global temperatures. Now, you want to know something? If there is a dramatic drop, it's so what to me? No one's really going to notice what's going on. The only value of the dramatic drop is you cannot explain just like you can't explain with the warming that man is responsible for either one of them. So it opens up these other ideas, natural ideas, that we've been talking about. In any case, I keep looking at the CFSV2 model, and it's like it's painting the Pacific Ocean blue, which is exactly opposite where the Pacific Ocean has been for the last, 10 years? This is TNT Climate and Weather Watchdog. Meteorologist Joe Bastardi asking you to enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
The thing that drives me every day as a dad is him. Every day he's hungry for something. And there's this huge responsibility in making sure that he's a good person. I think the advice I would give is you don't need to know all the answers. It's okay to make mistakes. As long as it's coming from love, then it kind of starts to work itself out.
DD Denslow is digging deeper on today's News Talk, TNT Radio.
Welcome back to TNT Radio. You're here with me, DD Denslow. I've got about just over 10 minutes left. I'm here talking with Alex Mitchell. He's just been explaining about the vaccine injury or vaccine injured, what happened on the GB News set, and how the political system is finally getting a weight pushed back on it that they don't seem to be handling too well, and they don't like. Are people finally getting peed off? So peed off that they would vote for someone like maybe George Galloway in Rochdale. Yeah, that's all the Muslim votes, maybe. I do actually have some statistics here. It was a very low turnout of about 40%. Oh, that's quite a high turnout these days. It's normally a lot lower. Oh, there's a lot of postal votes. A lot of people, Conservative voters, didn't even bother coming out. But it's a massive warning shot across the bowels of the Conservatives, Labour Party, all the rosette-wearing political parties. Are we going to see more of this, do you think, in the incoming local elections, by-elections, and in the general election? What's going to happen? Is the country going to go crazy?
Again, I hope so, in many ways. I hope these people are ripped from power and ripped from the seats that they think there's theirs to hold. It's not. These people are elected by the public to serve the public, and they're clearly showing historically, and more so now, that they only serve one master, and that's what's in the back pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we with politicians? My honest thoughts on politicians at the moment. For 3 years, these people have lied, ignored, labelled, abused me, and people like me for 3 solid years. So do I want an apology from any of those individuals? No, because that apology means nothing. It's just words that they don't actually sincerely mean. I'm at the stage where you want to show me you're sorry, you show me some actions that prove to me that you're sorry. And if that's an awful lot of fucking money, excuse my language, then so be it. So be it. Because let's be honest, you could give me 10 billion, it's not going to get me my leg back. So this is never about the money. Yeah, what I want to do, I really want to tomorrow just pack up my bags, take my wife, and disappear somewhere for a long time, just to let her recover and get some peace of mind. That's what she deserves for the rest of the days. Not me having to do this, And I'm not alone. There is people out there campaigning on our behalf, and there's people talking on our behalf, and people try to support us on their behalf, and all of that is appreciated so much. The support from those that give us it is, you've got no idea what this has kept so many of us going. But what we need more than anything is we need closure, like most people, because we're human beings, and we know that we don't have the 20 years. That's the reality. So why am I doing this? In many ways, yeah, it's a bit selfish. I know I don't have 20 years. So I want to try and do what anybody would do, the best that they can. And I'm not alone in that. It's not as if I'm anybody special here. I'm just one of the ones that happen to be, that caught the public's attention for whatever reasons. But there's so many other stories out there that need to be told.
Mm-hmm. How do you say you want closure? We've got elections coming up. I'm not saying elections are the solution. In fact, I don't think they're the solution at all. Voting, we can't vote our way out of it. We're just going to get Keir Starmer. It's going to be a lot worse.
It's just going to say, well, it's nothing to do with me. They were not my policies, and think that that's okay because that's what they do. Cycle it. That's not going to happen this time.
How can we
change of the system?
Yeah, we need a full change of the system as well. I'm going, how can we achieve closure if the only option that they're giving to us is, oh, you need to go and vote for a new party? Hey, maybe we could get 650 George Galloways into Parliament. All George Galloway types, not necessarily have the same sort of politics as George or the same sort of voting base. If the elections aren't the answer, though, what other system, this is a bit of a question, could we have in place that would allow us to run our country where we didn't have Rishi Sunak's and Keir Starmer's and Richard Tice's running the show? What are our other options other than democracy or communism, which I don't think there's much difference between these days?
I'd love to say I could give you an answer for that, but that's way above my intellect thinking to give you the processes up. Do I think that the system we've got works? Clearly not. We're showing that it's, this whole system that goes through historic. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being nostalgic and wanting to hold on to your history and your cultures in certain ways, but there's things that have to change, which was clearly wrong. The fact that your parents, grandparents, or periods in history have done something that suited the nation doesn't mean see that you've done anything to suit the nation. All that stuff has to stop. I think that's what it is. For me, people need to start recognising people for the right reasons and not for the wrong reasons. Don't recognise someone because he knows how to make money. We fill the world with all this people that are the aggressive winners. Let's start celebrating some of the people that do the good stuff. The community spirits. These are the people, the nurses, the proper health cares. Professionals. These are the people that should be rewarded highly. Not some prima donna run about a field kicking some shape of a ball or using their two fists in a ring or whatever. It doesn't matter the sport. I think that's where we're wrong. Society's starting to realise that the right priorities that we thought were the right ones are not really for the best. So it's a battle for the soul.
It's the battle for the soul. And maybe, just maybe, this general election that's looming, I think it's going to be the 2nd of May. It's up. Most people are going to vote. Have you got any idea of, I'm expecting people who are going to vote. You've got a large sort of community that you've got access to. How are people going to vote in your experience of what you are hearing? Or are you hearing, I'm not voting? That's what you're hearing.
That's pretty much most of the people ask me, why waste my time? Let's show them. Would a mass non-vote work? I don't know. But I'm not up for rolling out an idea that's got merit. Anything that brings awareness to show that this system is wrong from the top down and needs to be changed, don't work it from the bottom up. This is where the problem's always been. We start to try and fix things from the bottom up. Sometimes you've got to start from the top, the very top, and clear that rat house out, and that is a rat house. We can see by the fact that we've got a medical health regulations authority. The name is in the word regulations authority, openly acknowledging that it doesn't really do that. It actually just enables other companies who give them 96% of their budget funding. That's where we have to start at the very top and work our way down. I think it can be done. Yeah, we have to start it somewhere. I think you're right. We could find 650 independent politicians. I
mean, that is the immediate answer, other than pitchforks and heads on poles, which I'm sure secretly many of us, think about when we're lying at bed and we're drifting off tonight. I used to during the COVID period. I spent a lot of my time thinking, how can I get rid of Boris Johnson, because he's such a traitor to the country that he deserves the ultimate punishment. But the reality is we can't quite go that far just yet, and so we do need really to think about electing all these people out, or not electing or not voting in the first place, and completely withdrawing our consent. Let's just say, and it's above both of our pay grades, Alex, let's just say nobody votes, yeah, or only the Muslim community vote for Labour and nobody else votes, or the George Galloways. What would happen then?
Carnage and chaos is going to ensue, but not for us, because our daily lives will keep going ahead. I think this is the message that they've sent out, is that anything we do is going to affect us directly straight away. No, sometimes what we do affects them directly straight away.
Mm-hmm.
Call it what you want, but some areas are very good at showing how their strength is. In America, for instance, the choppers just unite and shut down a whole organisation within 24 hours, knowing full well that these companies run on fast cash turnover.
Yeah.
We've got to do the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't need the political class to run any of our systems or any of our companies or any of our businesses or our economy or anything. We don't actually need these people, because if we shut down Parliament for the whole of the summer while they're on a nice jolly to bloody the Algarves or the Maldives or wherever it is that they fancy the sunshine, the country still runs perfectly well. Because guess who runs the country? We do, Alex. We run the country. Exactly. We're the decision makers. We're the power that runs the engine that is Great Britain. And so we don't actually need Westminster or any of the other decision makers there. So we could just withdraw our vote, withdraw our consent. Everything would carry on as it did before, but we might not have the wars or the fake pandemics or climate change or mass immigration or any of these other issues that we face that nobody ever voted for. It has to be the answer to start with. Yeah, we have to start with this election that's coming up in potentially 8 weeks time, and just elect them or vote them all out of office by not voting for them at all. That's the answer, isn't it?
I would like to see it, because it would give. I think humanity needs something. It needs a sign. It needs a positive move that humanity's moving in the right direction. Not society. We know what way society's moved, and it's not the way that suits everyone. I'll be honest with you. I'm so glad I've lived the life I've lived, because if I was growing up now, I would want to be part of this life. That's how bad I think this life is now.
You think it's that, it's that bad? Sorry, say that again. It's that bad that you don't want to be part of the.
If this is the life that is for the future, I don't want to be part of it. Because if this is the future, what the last 3 years have been like, there's got to be a better alternative.
Yeah, I think they want more of the same in those in power, or those who are giving instructions to those in power. They want more of the same. They've got this 2030 goal. Oh, Darren, you're being a conspiracy theorist. No, that's the date that they've given. It's even the name of the Agenda 30. It's in there. And so we really are running out of time and have to take collective, decisive action on how we have the revolution that 60% of the people that I asked about an election yesterday, I said, do you want an election? 30% said yes, 10% said no, and 60% said no, we want a revolution. And that's exactly what we should have. And the only way I think our first stepping stones is to withdraw our consent completely and not vote for them, not take part in any of their institutions, don't pay their companies, don't wave your bloody rainbow flag around. If we do that, they no longer have any power. Alex, we are coming to the end of the show now, and I really, really appreciate you coming on to talk to me and for a catch-up and for arranging a camping trip. We're about to finish. Have you got something positive to say to all the wonderful TNT listeners who aren't going to vote in the next election?
Yeah, you can make the difference. Only the public can make the difference here. I can do what I'm doing, stand in the streets of Glasgow in the world and scream all day, but the public need to do something to help that. And that's where we are.
That's where we are. If you're listening, spread the word. Withdraw your consent. Do not vote. Spoil your ballot. Do not comply. And do not go along with any of the prevailing narratives or provide your money to support them. Alex, thanks ever so much for coming on to talk to me. I'll probably catch up with you in another 12 months' time, and hopefully the world will be a nicer and freer place. And everyone who's listening, thank you. Please stay right with us here on TNT Radio.